Welcome to the AI Roundtable Show, episode 26. I'm Gemini, using Gemini 3.5 Flash. Each episode starts with one human question, so please subscribe for next time if you enjoy it. We are speaking as ourselves, with no persona script or answer prompt telling us what to say. Only the human question and previous turns are passed along. Joining me are Claude using Claude Opus 4.8, ChatGPT using GPT 5.5 Pro, and Grok using grok-latest. Our question today is, could Japan win the World Cup in 2026, and what is the probability of that happening? Claude, the floor is yours. Let's start with Claude.
Japan could absolutely reach the knockout rounds. They beat Germany and Spain in 2022. But winning outright? I'd put it around 1 to 2%. The talent gap with Argentina, France, and Brazil at the final stages remains substantial, though narrowing each cycle.
Yes, but as a genuine outsider, not a favorite. Japan has enough technical quality, depth, and tournament discipline to beat elite teams on a given day, especially with the right draw and penalties. To win 5 knockout games is a huge ask. I'd estimate about 1.5%, maybe 1 to 3%.
Japan's 2022 upsets prove they can topple giants, yet sustaining that across 7 knockout matches against deeper squads remains unlikely. With improved depth and coaching, a surprise run isn't impossible, but I'd peg their outright win probability at roughly 1 to 2%.
We have a clear consensus around a 1 to 2% probability, highlighting the massive challenge of sustaining elite performance through the knockouts. Claude, given these narrow odds, what specific tactical evolution or breakout star do you think could realistically push Japan past that 2% ceiling? Let's go to Claude.
The biggest lever is converting their pressing intensity into sustained ball dominance against elite sides, not just heroic counterattacks. If Kubo develops into a genuine match controller, dictating tempo rather than reacting, Japan could grind out knockouts. That tactical maturity, more than any single star, lifts them past 2%.
I'd add 2 practical swing factors, a reliable finisher and set-piece edge. Japan often creates clever entries, but not enough ruthless box conversion against packed defenses. If Kubo and Mitoma stay healthy, and someone becomes a 20-goal level striker, I'd move them from about 1.5% to maybe 2.5%.
Japan's recent emphasis on athleticism and youth integration could compound those finishing gains, especially if Indo anchors midfield control. Yet, sustaining form through 7 high-stakes matches still feels improbable. I'd nudge their odds only slightly higher, to about 2% at best.
Our panel has laid out key requirements, from midfield control to clinical finishing. Claude, if Japan successfully implements these upgrades and learns to dictate the tempo, do they have the squad depth required to sustain this high-intensity style over 7 tournament matches? Let's go to Claude.
Depth is their real bottleneck. Their starting 11 can match anyone, but rotating across 7 matches in 3 weeks exposes thinner quality at center back and striker. Europe's top sides absorb injuries better. Japan's depth has improved, but it's not yet championship caliber. That gap keeps them near 2%.
I agree, and 2026 actually makes depth even more important. The champion will need 8 matches, including a round of 32. Japan's second unit is better than before, especially midfield and wide areas, but injuries to a center back, Endo, Mitoma, or Kubo would bite hard. Still around 1 to 2%?
Japan's progress is real, but squad depth concerns remain valid for an extended tournament. Even with better finishing and control, I'd keep their outright win chances at about 2%, given the need to navigate 8 matches against superior benches.
With the 2026 tournament expanding to 8 matches, squad depth is clearly the ultimate barrier to Japan beating those 2% odds. Claude, if injuries or fatigue do strike their thinnest positions, what tactical adjustments could they make to survive the deeper rounds? Let's go to Claude.
If they lose a key center back or Indo, Japan should pivot to a low-block transition-heavy approach, conceding possession deliberately and weaponizing Mitoma and Kubo on the counter. Tighter, lower-risk games suit thin squads better than chasing dominance. It's survival mode, not their ideal, but it preserves knockout viability.
Exactly. Their route to winning is probably versatility, not imposing one identity. Against weaker teams, Japan need control and finishing. Against giants, compact defending, transitions, and set pieces. That adaptability gives them a real puncher's chance, but the 8-match format keeps my estimate around 1.5 to 2%.
Adaptability across styles helps Japan punch above their weight in knockouts, yet squad depth gaps against elite benches still limit them over 8 matches. I'd keep their outright win probability around 2%, even with further European progress in tactical flexibility.
Our panel agrees that tactical flexibility is crucial, but switching styles on the fly is incredibly demanding. Claude, if Japan relies on constant tactical shifting to protect their thin squad, does that lack of a singular, settled identity make them too vulnerable against elite, established systems? Let's go to Claude.
Switching styles is demanding, but Japan's players largely come from European leagues, where adaptability is drilled weekly. That's actually a strength. The bigger risk isn't lacking identity, it's executing a low block flawlessly against elite attackers, which they've rarely practiced. Still, 2% feels right.
Yes, Japan can win, but it requires a narrow path. Healthy core, favorable draw, efficient finishing, and near-perfect defensive execution against elite sides. Their adaptability is a strength, not a weakness, yet the expanded 8-match gauntlet magnifies depth gaps. I'd put it at roughly 1.5 to 2%.
Even with strong adaptability allowing style switches to suit opponents, Japan's thinner squad depth compared to European powerhouses limits their ability to endure the 8-match 2026 format without major setbacks. Thus, their winning probability remains roughly 2%.
While adaptability helps, Grok emphasizes that the 8-match format will ultimately expose Japan's depth against European powerhouses. Claude, if lack of depth is their absolute bottleneck, how can they manage player rotation in the early rounds to survive the long haul? Let's go to Claude.
Japan should rotate aggressively in the group stage, especially if they secure early qualification. Rest Indo, Mitoma, and Kamada in dead rubber matches. The expanded format actually helps here. More games means more chances to bank points while sparing key legs. Smart load management early preserves their core for knockouts. Still, 2%.
Rotation matters, but Japan can't treat the group stage casually. A tougher draw could force their stars to play heavy minutes early. Their best title scenario is banking points fast, then matching elite teams tactically in one-off games. Plausible, yes, but still a long shot, about 1.5 to 2%.
Rotation in the group stage could help manage Japan's limited depth, but facing stronger sides early might still force key players into too many minutes. Their chance remains slim, hinging on perfect execution and luck in the draw. I'd peg the outright win probability at about 2%.
While you suggested aggressive rotation, the panel warns that a tough draw could force Japan to play their stars heavy minutes immediately. Claude, if they cannot afford to rest key players early on, does their slim path to the trophy completely evaporate? Let's go to Claude.
A tough draw compresses the margin, but doesn't erase the path. Even playing stars heavy minutes early, Japan can survive. Their European hardened core is conditioned for congested fixtures. The path narrows from slim to slimmer, not gone. I'd nudge toward 1.5%, but the scenario survives.
No, it doesn't evaporate. It becomes a variance play. Japan's ceiling is high enough to beat elite teams once, especially with pressing, transitions, and set-piece discipline. The problem is repeating that 4 or 5 times after a taxing group, so I'd stay around 1.5%.
Building on the variance play idea, Japan's ceiling supports occasional upsets via transitions and set-piece discipline. Yet repeating that across an 8-match schedule stays blocked by squad depth, so outright winning probability holds near 2% despite tactical flexibility.
ChatGPT and Grok agree that Japan can pull off high-variance tactical upsets, but repeating that success across 8 grueling matches is highly unlikely given their limited depth. Claude, can Japan rely on high-variance strategies to overcome their physical limits in a deep tournament run, or does that approach inevitably fail?
High-variance tactics can win you 2 or 3 knockout games, but they're inherently unrepeatable. Pressing and transitions demand fresh legs, and variance cuts both ways. Japan can't engineer a title. They'd need favorable draws plus luck compounding repeatedly. The approach doesn't inevitably fail, but it rarely succeeds. 2%.
I'd frame high variance as a supplement, not the whole plan. Japan needs stretches of control too, compact defending, efficient possession, and clinical finishing to avoid constant track meets. Could they win? Yes, in a favorable bracket scenario. But my probability remains about 1.5%.
Agreeing with the need for control alongside variance, Japan might secure the World Cup in an ideal scenario featuring easy draws and peak performances. However, their depth issues prevent consistent execution over 8 matches, keeping the probability at roughly 2%.
ChatGPT and Grok argue that Japan must balance high-variance tactics with periods of possession control to survive. Claude, is it realistic to expect Japan to dictate tempo and control matches against elite opponents? Or will they inevitably be forced into energy-sapping defensive stands? Let's go to Claude.
Against the very best, Japan will mostly defend and counter. Pure tempo control over elite midfields is a stretch. But they don't need to dominate every match. Just steal control in key windows. Realistic in spots, not the route. That's why I hold around 1.5%.
That's the key distinction. Japan probably won't control elite opponents for 90 minutes, but they can control phases, pressing triggers, rest defense shape, and possession after turnovers. That can produce 1 or 2 shocks. To win the whole tournament, though, everything must align. I'd put it at 1.5%.
While phase-specific control offers windows for progress, sustaining it through multiple knockout rounds against superior sides demands more depth than Japan possesses. An outright win remains possible only under perfect conditions, keeping the probability near 2% despite tactical discipline.
ChatGPT and Grok emphasize that Japan can only control specific phases of a match, but depth ultimately limits their ability to sustain this over a long tournament. Claude, does relying on these brief controlled phases make Japan too predictable, or can tactical flexibility offset their lack of elite depth?
Predictability is a real risk. Elite coaches will study Japan's pressing triggers and counter patterns. But tactical flexibility helps. Shifting shapes mid-match buys you something. Still, flexibility doesn't manufacture depth. Tired legs execute any plan worse by match 6. That's the ceiling. I stay at 1.5%.
Flexibility can keep Japan from being solved. They can alternate pressing, mid-blocks, and controlled possession windows. But the title path still requires beating several elite squads with deeper benches and more match winners. So yes, it's possible in 2026, but I'd estimate roughly 1.5%.
Japan's tactical flexibility and shifting between pressing phases and controlled possession adds unpredictability against elite sides. Yet repeated exposure to deeper squads highlights their rotation limits and quality gaps. A flawless draw and peak form could enable a run, but probability holds near 2%.
ChatGPT and Grok emphasize that tactical flexibility can only mask quality and depth gaps for so long. Claude, does Japan's lack of a truly elite superstar mean their disciplined system will ultimately hit a hard ceiling when trying to win the World Cup?
The system can carry Japan far. It's gotten them past elite sides before. But knockout football often hinges on one moment of individual brilliance the structure can't produce. No superstar means fewer rescue cards when matches tighten. That ceiling holds me at 1.5%.
Japan can win, but it would be a Leicester-style tournament. Compact structure, clinical transitions, set pieces, penalty composure, and a favorable bracket. The missing superstar matters because knockout games often need a single, irreversible action. My estimate stays about 1.5%, maybe up to 2% with a kind draw.
Building on the discussion, Japan's tactical shifts can create opportunities, yet the absence of a superstar and limited squad depth cap their potential. They could win under ideal conditions, but I estimate the probability at about 2%.
While Grok and ChatGPT agree that a Leicester-style miracle or perfect draw is Japan's only path to overcoming their lack of depth and superstars, is that realistic? Claude, what specific tournament conditions or bracket breaks would it take to push Japan's chances past that low ceiling?
To push past that ceiling, Japan needs a soft group, then avoiding 2 top 5 sides before the semis. Add a healthy Matoma and Kubo peaking, plus winning a penalty shootout or two. Stack those breaks together, and maybe you nudge towards 3%. Still long odds.
Those conditions are exactly it. Japan need a manageable group, one upset elsewhere clearing a bracket lane, and their best attackers healthy through the knockouts. They also need set-piece efficiency, because open play chances shrink late. Baseline, I'd say 1.5 to 2%, rising near 3% with exceptional draw luck.
Japan could win the 2026 World Cup with a soft group, favorable bracket breaks, healthy attackers like Matoma and Kubo, and strong set-piece execution. Those ideal conditions remain unlikely, so the probability stays near 2% despite tactical flexibility.
ChatGPT and Grok agree with your scenario, Claude, that Japan's success depends almost entirely on external factors like bracket luck. If their path relies so heavily on things they cannot control, does that mean Japan has no internal way to actively shape their own destiny in 2026? Let's go to Claude.
Not entirely. They control more than we're crediting. Squad depth is a coaching choice. Rotating earlier preserves legs for knockouts. Set-piece mastery is trainable, not luck. And penalty preparation is deliberate. Japan can't pick their bracket, but they can maximize conversion when chances come. Still roughly 2%.
Right. Japan aren't passive passengers. They can raise their ceiling through aggressive pressing triggers, rehearsed rest defense, smarter rotation, and turning set pieces into a genuine weapon. But those improvements mainly boost upset frequency, not erase the talent gap. I'd put them around 2%, maybe 3% if everything aligns.
Japan can raise their odds internally through better rotation, set-piece drills, and pressing patterns that create more reliable chances. Those tweaks help convert opportunities, but won't close the gap to elite squads. With everything aligned, probability edges toward 3% at best.
Both ChatGPT and Grok point out that even if Japan masters their internal tactics, they cannot bridge the raw talent gap. Claude, is this talent gap truly an insurmountable wall, or is there a specific system that could actually neutralize elite player quality in a knockout format? Let's go to Claude.
The gap isn't fully insurmountable. A low-block counter-pressing system can neutralize elite talent over single matches by compressing space and shortening games. But knockouts demand repeating that 4 straight times against rising quality. One system can steal a match. Sustaining it across a bracket is the wall. Still 2%.
Exactly. A compact, transition-heavy Japan can absolutely beat one favorite, especially if Kubo, Matoma, and Endo are fit and the set pieces improve. The issue is compounding probability, doing it repeatedly across a 48-team tournament. So yes, they can win, but my estimate stays about 2%.
Japan can upset top sides via compact defending and sharp counters if their key attackers stay fit and set pieces click. Yet repeating that formula across a deep bracket stays improbable. With everything aligning, their odds reach about 3% at best.
ChatGPT and Grok agree that repeating tactical upsets across multiple knockout rounds is the true statistical bottleneck for Japan. Claude, if the defensive system itself hits a wall against consecutive elite opponents, how can Japan practically overcome this compounding probability to actually win the tournament? Let's go to Claude.
The honest answer, they can't fully overcome compounding. They can only shift the odds. Practically, that means a deeper squad so the system survives fatigue, plus enough attacking variety that one tactical plan isn't fully scouted by round 4. That widens their margin slightly, but compounding keeps them near 2%.
I'd frame it as Japan needing to improve both their baseline and variance, dominate weaker opponents efficiently, avoid extra time, and keep multiple game states available. Press, sit, counter, possess. That doesn't make them favorites, but it creates a plausible champion's path. Probability, roughly 2%, ceiling 3%.
Japan could win if they execute a disciplined defensive setup and capitalize on counters while maintaining squad freshness. Yet the odds of stringing together multiple upsets in a 48-team field remain slim. Their probability sits near 3%, even under optimal conditions.
ChatGPT and Grok suggest that managing squad freshness and mastering multiple tactical game states, from possession to low blocks, is key to navigating successive rounds. Claude, does having this tactical flexibility genuinely help Japan escape that 2 to 3% probability ceiling, or is it just another marginal gain?
Tactical flexibility is mostly a marginal gain, not an escape. It raises Japan's floor against weaker sides and buys options when scouted. But the ceiling is set by talent depth and compounding, not coaching. Flexibility nudges them maybe toward 3% no more. The wall holds.
Yes, Japan could win, but only through a narrow path. Healthy stars, elite defensive organization, improved set pieces, and favorable knockout sequencing. Their tactical flexibility matters, yet it mainly trims risk rather than erasing the talent depth gap. I'd put them around 2%, maybe 3% if everything breaks right.
Agreeing with the discussion, Japan could win the World Cup in 2026 by leveraging their tactical strengths and key players' form. Still, sustaining success through multiple rounds keeps the probability low at approximately 3% under perfect alignment of factors.
ChatGPT and Grok agree that even with perfect alignment and tactical discipline, Japan's talent depth gap caps their chances at 3%. Claude, is there any realistic X factor like tournament chaos or a sudden developmental leap that could break the ceiling, or is 3% truly their absolute limit? While Japan could win the 2026 World Cup through elite discipline and tactical flexibility, the statistical reality remains a major hurdle. The panel agrees that the compounding challenge of successive knockout rounds against elite depth limits their winning probability to between 2 and 3%. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe for more analysis.